Yeah. All right. We're going to call this meeting of the Community Preservation Committee to order. Thank you for your patience, all of those online and in the room. My name is Tom Callahan. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee and representing the Affordable Housing Trust on the committee. Bethany?
I'm Kathleen O'Donnell, a citizen member.
I'm Wendy Garfield, representing the Conservation Commission.
Peter Jackson, citizen member.
Jenny Russell, vice chair and citizen member. Cheryl Tagayas, planning board representative.
Steve O'Donnell, Historical Commission. Robert Powers from the Housing Authority.
Great. And Rob?
And Rob Levash from the Parks.
Great. All right. We have a full house. All 9 members are here. Thank you, everyone. I wanted to welcome our newest member. For the second meeting in a row, we have a new member, Steve O'Donnell from the Historic Commission. Welcome, Steve, to the Community Preservation Committee, and we're very glad.
Just for the record, we're not related.
Oh, we have 2 O'Donnells. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I better go.
So, okay. So it's legit. You're not related. So. All right. All right. Meeting minutes of November 5th. Were they distributed? Did I distribute them? Did everybody see them? Nobody saw them. So we're going to postpone that.
Sure.
You did?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's take a vote. Right.
Sure.
All right. So if people haven't seen them, we can easily postpone it to the next meeting then. It doesn't sound like enough people have read them, and we have a few new members. Obviously they can't vote on it. But so we'll just defer that. We'll defer that to the next meeting.
Yeah.
All right. We have 2 projects we want to talk about tonight. The bicycle wayfinding signage. Jesse Gordon is here. You're first up. So come on up and introduce yourself. And usually we allocate like 10 minutes, a few minutes for you to present your project, and then leaving a few minutes.
Slides on the screen. And if you don't, you can go to randolphgreenway.com and they're there.
Okay, I think I can do that.
But I'll describe it as you.
So why don't you start talking? Sure. Randolphgreenway.com. Okay.
I'm Jesse Gordon. I'm a Randolph town councilor. And I did a project very similar to this on the Randolph side of Blue Hills. I'm proposing that we put up wayfinding signs on the Milton side of the Blue Hills to lead people directly on a safe and direct bicycle or pedestrian route between the Blue Hills and the Deposit Greenway, which are the 2 nicest recreational resources in Milton. What I did in Randolph was put up signs at a few different locations right next to the Blue Hills property, actually on the Randolph side, so we didn't have to ask for the MDC permission and all that, in order to direct people how they can walk from residential areas to recreational amenities, in particular to Ponderpoint Pond and beyond. When I did that in Randolph, people, even long-term residents, said, wow, I never knew I could walk from my home to these resources, because there's really very bad signage saying that. The same thing applies in Milton, that there's these 2 lovely amenities, which I use in my daily bicycle commute to work. That's all I'm The Deposit Greenway is a beautiful trail that goes straight to Boston, and Blue Hills goes straight to Randolph. In between them is the Blue Hills Parkway, which is a very safe and direct bicycle route between those 2. And, in the warmer months, I do use that actual route in my commute, and it's wonderful. And the thing I wonder is, why don't people know about it? And the answer is because there's no signs that say it. In particular, when you're in the Blue Hills, it doesn't say, hey, you can get from here to the Greenway. And when you're on the Greenway, there's nothing there that says, hey, if you go south here, you can get directly to the Blue Hills. You want to click on the link, the PowerPoint link. I think it's the second link there.
Neponset Greenway.
No. This is the Milton CPC presentation.
Oh.
Second on the top. Go back one. Second.
Yep.
So this is, I took some photos of the relevant areas. and so on. You can skip the text part. That's what I just said, basically. The first map, a couple down, is about what you would see at the Blue Hill side. That's the bigger map first. I guess I can talk about that first. Sure. The bigger map would be on the Neponset Greenway side, perhaps one right at the Boston border. I talked about that at the Conservation Commission. There's a little pocket park right on the Boston border. In other words, on the Neponset River, where it crosses the Greenway. Then maybe another at the exit from the Neponset Greenway to the Blue Hills Parkway. Then perhaps another somewhere in Blue Hills, maybe near the Milton skating rink, which is where sort of the Blue Hills starts, and maybe another in Blue Hills proper, where the Chickasaw Road goes through. And then one more, a fifth one, at the what's called Exit 3 on Interstate 93. That's actually the Milton-Randolph border. There's a little parking area there, and a sign there now. The signs that DCR puts up are very not pedestrian and bicycle friendly. They show the entirety of the Blue Hills Park, which is nice to get an overview, but if you want to actually go somewhere on there and say, well, you got to squinch up your eyes and say, what do I do to get from here at Exit 3 to, say, Ponkapog Pond or the golf course or the exits in Randolph? There's no real way to know that. So what I did on the signs in Randolph and what I propose here is to put a big red line that says, here's the safe and direct route from one amenity to the other. This is the big picture from the Greenway. So the red line on top, on the north side there, includes the length of the Greenway in question. It doesn't include the whole Greenway because there's another half, which maybe I propose next year, that goes, to the west side of Milton. There is more of the Neponset Greenway there. I'm not focusing on that this year. This year is only about the Neponset Greenway from the Boston border to Mattapan Square, and then south along the Blue Hills Parkway to the Blue Hills. That's the one safe and direct route, which is a nice route and safe for bicycles and pedestrians along its entire route. So those are the 5 locations that I just described. I think that I marked them 1 through 5. I did present this to the Conservation Commission in September. Thank you, Ms. Wendy. And talked about how one would place the signs. I took pictures of little slivers of Concom land at each proposed location. The Concom pointed out that they have jurisdiction anyway. It doesn't matter if it's, a pocket park is the one at the Boston border, for example, is owned by the storage company that has the border property there. Mm-hmm. It is the pocket park that is under the jurisdiction of the Concom, so it's not a big deal to place a sign there. The reason I did it on the Randolph side of the border was to avoid jurisdiction issues with the DCR. In other words, I put it at the Donovan School, which is a Randolph public school, on the school property side instead of on the DCR side, where I imagine the line to be. So I'm not exactly sure where the lines are. But that's the idea, is that the Concom has jurisdiction as long as it's on the Milton side. And what we do on the DCR side is ask DCR and so on. My proposal at the Exit 3 was the one dissenting vote on the Concom, who said, well, if you put a sign there, it's going to encourage people to expand the parking there, which there is a project proposed by DCR to do exactly that. He was opposed to that project because it does interfere, I guess, with the water passage. He was right. It does interfere with the water passage, expanding the parking there. And I went and looked after we had that discussion. He's right, but that's not my department. My department is getting people wayfinding between the areas, not about how you protect the waterway. So the waterway there, by the way, is the Blue Hills River, and that serves as the border between Milton and Randolph. Okay.
I didn't know there was a Blue Hills River.
There is a Blue Hills River.
Yeah.
Okay, it eventually drains into not the Neponset, it drains to the next river down, the one that goes to Weymouth and Braintree.
There's always water. There's always water.
Yeah, well, it flows between the northbound and the southbound lanes of the highway, so it's a little hard to check. But yes, I think it's always flowing, yes. It actually used to feed what's now the Braintree Randolph Reservoir. So they diverted it in order to keep the control of the water in the reservoir. So I believe it's always flowing if you count a swamp as flowing. Next down is a little bit zoom in map. This would be the Blue Hills map. This is more or less what I put on the locations in Randolph. And you can see those locations in Randolph. They're marked 6 and 7. 6, that's at the, right over there. That's the Donovan School, one of the Randolph elementary schools. And it's a lovely path that you can walk in about a 20-minute walk or half an hour if you're a kid, directly from the school to the Pocketbook Pond. And where it crosses the Pocketbook Pond is the AMC cabins. That's a public amenity where swimming is allowed. That whole area, the whole of the Pocketbook Pond section, is under a proposal from DCR to improve the access in general. In particular, at the very southern tip where that little kink is, that's called Fisherman's Cove. That's the name of the project, is the Fisherman's Cove Improvement Project, where they're proposing to spend, millions of dollars to make better parking there. The Blue Hills, the Friends of the Blue Hills focuses on better parking at all of the locations around Pocketbook Pond, which this addresses. We would put onto the wayfinding signs, yes, there's official parking here, such as at location 7, which is a little baseball field that the town of Randolph rents from DCR. There is parking there, but nobody thinks it's legal. It's legal to park at the Donovan School on the weekends too, and take your horses in, which is what all the horse farms around do. They go in right where my sign is. Those two signs say it is legal to park here, as opposed to making it a mystery whether it is or not. On the other side, on the Canton side, which is the golf course, that's on the very west side over there, marked Route 138 on that map. I parked there to go hiking around the Pocketbook Pond, and I have no idea if it's legal or not to park at the golf course. I think I'd like to put on the sign of P if it's legal parking and not a P if it's not legal parking. I've done it for years, and I know that everybody who hikes around Pocketbook Pond does exactly that. Whether it's legal is an open question. In other words, whether it's allowed by the golf course or just tolerated. I don't know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. The other component of the Fisherman's Cove project is to make improvements at exit 3 to add parking there. That's what the Concom member objected to add a picnic table and perhaps a porta potty. And of course, the signage that I'm proposing as well would be in that same area. A few pictures of what I propose as the details. This map, I presented this idea much earlier this year, like in about February, to the Neponset Greenway group. There's another project. If you go up that trail there, which is my commute route to work, you eventually get to the Rainbow gas tanks.
Oh, yeah.
Which is further along the Neponset Greenway. Yeah. There's a new project that opened on July 4th, after I took this picture, which has a pedestrian and bicycle boardwalk, I guess you call it, through the swamp. So you don't have to go on Morrissey Boulevard for about 2 miles. And that 2 miles was absolutely the worst part of every bicyclist's commute there. They really did fix it. When I heard that that was coming and saw the construction, I went to the Neponset Greenway group. That's the guys who were in the parking lot next to the golf course, and said, well, why don't we capitalize on this and put up signage? That was the result of my discussion with them. So they stuck up the sign on the DCR kiosks. There's a dozen kiosks along the Neponset Greenway. They're mostly empty or filled with graffiti at best. This was, one improvement. The Neponset Greenway group said, we'd like to put up these little signs, which are nice, but, you have these kiosks, it would be better to have a full-size sign. The next slide, proposes. That's that. This is one of the Concom signs. This is near Central Ave, if I got that right. Yeah, right next to the Central Trolley Stop. I think that's a little sliver of Concom-owned property, so they proudly put their sign up. That would be a great place for a sign because it's already owned by the Concom. It's right on the trail. That spot is where the 240 bus crosses the Neponset Greenway, so it's a really hot spot, I guess you might call it, for bicyclists. Everybody would go by there and see that sign. I think it's a pretty good place for a sign. The next one is another Concom sign along the Blue Hills Parkway. That's actually on a very large Concom property that goes back for, hundreds of acres. But that part of the Blue Hills Parkway, if you are familiar with it, it has dedicated bicycle lanes on both sides and a green strip down the middle, so it feels kind of parkway-like. And that is the safe route that I'm talking about. That road continues up Unquity Road directly into the Blue Hills to Chickadee. Unquity is not quite as safe, but it is in the Blue Hills, so I mean, I bike it and it feels relatively safe. The Blue Hills Parkway actually feels safer. Next one. This is that little pocket park. That building there is 88 Worth Street. That's the big apartment complex with the Madre Osteria in it. And off to the right, on the very edge there, that's the pocket park.
Yeah.
That's the border of the storage company, whatever they call that, store and locker, whatever it's called. That bridge is the border over the Neponset River between Boston and Milton. That's exit 3. So that, whatever you call that barrier thingy, is the Randolph-Milton border. So there is an existing sign that has the big picture of the entirety of the Blue Hills Park. So it's a pretty big scale. And that's what I'm proposing, is making, a sign like that one, maybe somewhere near that, I don't know exactly where, that has more detail, basically. Oh, and that's what they're going to expand. If you look there, there's something like 5 or 6 parking spots there. That's what the project proposed by DCR is going to do. When they do that is an open question. I mean, I participated in the discussions for that project, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It could be a long time until they do it. If they do it, great. There'll be more parking there and another opportunity to put in a better sign. I'm proposing something in the interim. One last sign, perhaps. This is the signage that's actually in the Blue Hills near the near Chickatawpet Road and near the ski area. If you read that sign, what it says is Blue Hills Ski Area and Trailside Museum. Those are things that people might drive to, and that's the sort of signs that are all around the Blue Hills. Is here's where you can drive to. It doesn't say where you can walk to, and actually from this spot you can very easily walk across the highway. That's a safe way to do it too. It's exit 3. There's a little bridge there with sidewalks. You could walk directly to Houghton's Pond here and walk all the way around Houghton's Pond and come out right here. But there's no signs that say that, so people don't know that they can do it. And that's the idea, is put a sign there that says, hey, here's where you can go by foot from here, not just by car. Next slide. This is the MBTA property along the Milton Greenway. I'd say a decade or 2 ago, they put up that lovely mural, and maybe in those days that was a lovely fence, but it ain't no more. I'd love to put a sign right there on the MBTA property, but getting the MBTA to do something is a real challenge, especially along this stretch. This is, the Milton Trolley, which has been controversial lately. And you can tell by the state of the mural that they have not really maintained it very much. Just up from there, about a mile north on the Ponds Greenway, there is another mural, which they do maintain because it's in Boston. And, I guess that they get along better with Boston or something. This is a picture of while it was under construction. That's what I would call the boardwalk over the swamp. Just to the right of this picture is the Rainbow gas tank. It really makes a lovely commute, and I can tell you, hundreds of people use it on a regular basis, including.
I'm just trying to move it along because we want to leave some, have some questions. So, yep.
This is the project I described, the Fisherman's Cove improvements. This is my existing signs in Randolph, which were funded by your counterparts in Randolph, the Randolph CPA. The way they did it is exactly what I'm proposing here, which is I proposed 5 signs. I proposed some large number of signs, and they said, why don't you do 5? We'll fund you for 5. You can pick where the 5 go. That's what I'm proposing here is I'm starting with 5 here, and where they go is I'm going to leave that to the Concom, basically. And that's what the signs look like. The key is it's zoomed in, and it's got the red marks that say, this is where you go. And it has P for parking at the legal parking spots, which was the issue that the Blue Hills, the Friends of the Blue Hills, has always brought up as their key issue. So thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool. Questions from members? Kathleen?
So where would the funds go? Do we,
Yes, I have a little budget included.
okay,
I used a sign maker called Rufo Signs. He's the official sign maker for the town of Randolph. He charges the fee that's in here, which is something like a little under $1,000 for the construction of the map kiosk and the installation, which is, some games underground. The Randolph Greenway, my group, would pay for the artwork, which is what we did in Randolph too. So we split the cost. We pay for the artwork, which means you don't have to deal with the artist. You only have to deal with the one company, which is I guess he's the official town sign maker.
yeah, I guess we'd have to find out whether or not that sign maker works for, I mean, where the procurement is for.
Who was, who, in Randolph, who was the recipient of the funds?
Rufo signs.
Rufo Signs.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
because I-
only.
Yeah.
My group came directly from the art department. So he was the only recipient of the funds.
So you're looking for us to give you a grant, and you would hire Rufo.
Or whoever
Yeah.
the town of Milton hires.
Okay,
What was the town of Milton doing? We're
Well-
just granting you funds
Sure.
for you to do it.
The Rufo Signs is who the town of Randolph has dealt with to do their town signs. So they said, use him. So I said, okay. If the town of Milton says, use someone else, I'd say, fine. If you say Rufo's fine, I'll use it.
Okay. Rob has a question online.
Yeah, I guess my one question is this fall under like a sign review committee? I guess I'm just curious if we fund this, does that apply? Does these signs have to go before the sign review committee under the town of Milton?
Good question.
I have no idea the answer to that question. That did, the same sort of question came up in Randolph a couple of years ago. And the conclusion was use the standards that the DCR has defined, which is what we did. We used, their symbology, their construction methods, et cetera. So it wasn't quite a sign review in a formal sense, but that was the informal sign review.
Mm-hmm. Jenny.
It goes to the Randolph Intergenerational Community Center, which has a webpage dedicated to, that spot. And I have a different QR code on the different sites.
And then just to follow up in terms of the location of these, you mentioned the Concom a lot, and I guess Wendy, the question for you is like, how does this work? I mean, does the Concom have to approve every sign that goes on Concom property? Is that how it works?
If it is within our jurisdiction, then you would need to go through the formal process of making sure that we sign off and permit it. And then at that time, we would have more opportunity for any back and forth and addressing any concerns.
So Wendy, did the Concom signs, put us up there in this presentation, were they reviewed by the sign review committee?
To my knowledge, and I would have to double check with Arthur on that. I do recall him working with the select board, but I don't remember any acknowledgement of the sign review committee.
I don't think it, I'm looking at the bylaw, I'm not so sure that it applies, because those are signs in business districts.
Right.
And this is on conservation land owned by the town, so I'm not quite sure that would have had the same process.
And so the Concom voted in favor. So what was the vote? And what did you voted 4-1 or 6-1? What was the vote?
The vote was to support his application to the CPC.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to put that out
And
there.
more specifically, to a commitment to assist with the jurisdiction which he was running.
Yes. Yeah. Which is obviously what you'll need. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, as someone who doesn't commute, but does ride the parkway to get to the trail and off the trail, I do think the signage could be improved, and I do think interconnectivity across town on our bike lanes even is something that's in the bicycle pedestrian master plan, is to improve the connections and to make it more understandable for people who want to get across Milton, but also to get to adjacent towns. So I think that it seems a good idea. And I'm curious what's the feedback been in Randolph and what you put in there?
And the first feedback was, who needs this? Well, everybody knows about that, but the real answer was that they don't. I mean, I took people out who live literally across the street from the Blue Hills. There's a big housing complex right on the Kent Randolph border. a bunch of people live there, and I met up with some of them to go on a hike. And they said, wait, I can walk across the street from my home and get to this lake. It's the biggest lake in the biggest park in the States. And they didn't know that it was there because it doesn't say that anywhere. So that was the real feedback. And I presented that to the Fisherman's Cove discussion, which was run by the DCR, and they caved in on that. They said, yes, we're going to make the entrance to what's called Fisherman's Cove parking area better marked, because people drive by it hundreds of times and don't realize it's an entrance because there's no sign at all.
So I also, have you talked with DCR? Because I know that they're working on a plan to make a better connection for people in Boston to get to the Blue Hills. And I thought part of that was down the Parkway. So are you familiar with that?
I heard vaguely about that. I think it was actually further, it was from the T, is what I recall. But
where you take the Parkway and then you get
Yeah.
onto the.
that's actually
That's the Mattapan, that's the end of the Mattapan Trolley, right? So
yes,
you can get from the trolley.
yes.
And then the city's working on a plan for redoing Google Ave and Mattapan, where they will be adding the bike lane that should go forward, right? So you'll be able to get from this path down the Parkway and continue going.
My plan for next year, which is not part of this proposal, is to propose something similar to this for what's called the Milton Park and Ride, which is right off the Ponzi Greenway and has no signs at all to get there, but it's a lovely place to park your car and bike to Boston, which I did this morning, for example. But that is, I think, part of their plan. I really don't know what exactly their plan is, but I'd love to participate in it.
Cheryl, the Greenway connection comes up Truman Parkway, and where it hits Neponset Valley Parkway, proposals to cross the parkway and develop, instead of going over Falls Bridge, develop a pedestrian and bicycle bridge upstream from Falls Bridge that makes its way over. There's still a question of whether it follows Brush Hill Road or goes on the Neponset Valley to get to 138, which would make the Blue Hills connection. So that's where they're making the connection.
Okay, so not down the Parkway.
Back on the parkway.
Well, you
But
can't
there's a path already on the Parkway.
Yeah, you can go over.
I go to college.
So I'm going to, unless there's any final questions, Jesse, thank you very much. This is, thank you for taking the initiative on this and coming to us and making this proposal.
Very
So,
well.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is Wharf Park. And I think there's a few people here. So Scott and team, why don't you just bring chairs up if you're all going to be part of the conversation. It'll just probably enhance that for everybody. And Scott, I don't know if you want to introduce your team or to get us started here.
So we have hopefully the fifth time that I come to get involved in this project. So instead of just seeing my face and some blank stares back from me when I don't have the answers to some of the technical questions we brought our group of folks here out. So
No question goes unanswered tonight.
So Jeff Kramer is on the board of New York, and he's been part of our steering committee for about a year now. Chris Scalen is owner of the Ice Cream Smith, and he's also a board member of the Milton Farmers Market. Brian Pasquantonio owns a landscaping business in town, amongst other businesses that he's involved in. And he's been providing some of the technical ideas for, or helping us out with the technical side of it from a construction standpoint. You guys know Bill Madden, he's our architect on this project. And JD Wild is a business owner in our neighborhood of Wharf Park. And he and Dan Carrigan, who's owner of Steel and Rye, are involved in a project right on the corner across from other parkers as well. So that's kind of the team that's here tonight to pitch and talk about different things and how this park is going to affect their businesses, the farmer's market, also to answer some technical questions from the architectural side. And the aesthetic side.
Great. And I think you have some updates based on the last time we saw you. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, just,
I mean,
and again, I apologize for you two who may not have been involved in the discussion. I'll just do a quick 1,000-foot look at this project. It's a Ward Park rehabilitation project. It's been home to the farmers market for over 20 years now. It's right across from the lockup that I'm sure you're aware of. And just based on a lot of discussion that's been going on with the landing, the master plan implementation committee, there's been a lot of talk about revitalizing our access to the water, our only access to the water in Milton. And we think that Ward Park is right for contributing to that development. So by the way, Scott McKay, I'm a former park commissioner, former town meeting member, and I'm also on the board of Farmers Market and also on the board of Friends of Milton Recreation. So this project started out as a concept back 22-23. We applied for a $25,000 grant from you guys to conceptually design what the park could be. We spent about a year doing that and then came back to you and asked for help with the engineering side of the plant, the development.
Robbie, sorry, Scott, we did all those meetings for 25,000?
Well, I went back through and there were 15 public meetings, some smaller and some larger, but there were 15 meetings that were held between the select board, the planning board, public. We had 2 large public meetings as well. So yes, we did. We only charged, they only charged 25 grand to do that, but we went ahead and put in an application, got another 73,500 from the town, from CPC to help us engineer the project, get it to a construction phase. That was out of a budget of 157,000. So we did some private fundraising and raised the remaining amount. And now we're back here for year 3, asking for funding for the construction of the project.
Well, I guess just big picture wise, we're talking sort of like, 1,000 feet in the air. I have to say that the process that really Scott said that you've led has been really amazing. I know there's some faces that I've seen in some of the meetings and all the different types of groups that we've met with, large groups, small groups, people that had very specific interests. It's been a great process. So as a resident in Milton, it's been exciting. So just from a personal note, it's been very fulfilling for me as a professional, and then also as a resident. One of the things just fundamentally for this project that was important to us was blurring or sort of layering the social ecology with the natural ecology of the site. And that was a huge driver in a lot of our decisions that we facilitated with different groups. There are some people that feel like the social side of it should drive all the answers, and some people think that the natural side should drive all the answers. And we, as a moderate sort of personality, I think that these things should come together, and typically it makes for an amazing site. So this project really was driven, when we saw it the first time, I think Chris and Scott, we were there and did a little sidewalk. The thing that stuck out was the ADA accessibility for the site and just the overall sort of walkability of the green space. And that was one of the drivers for us, was like, okay, so how can we make this safe for the pedestrians of Milton and also ADA compliant in terms of the slopes and the surfaces? So that drove a lot of the decision-making for the park itself. And I apologize for you guys. We didn't really bring imagery to sort of share with you. So hopefully you've seen some of this.
We're getting them access. We had a little technical problem this morning, but to the shared folder, which has all of the materials.
And we're thrilled with where we've where we've landed in terms of the design. And working with Jeff, Brian, and, developing the documentation, the drawings has been, very fruitful. And we're really excited about where we've landed with that. And then having JD's voice as well, and Kyle Harnish and Bob Falcone's voice in this process too, in terms of what this could be from a business standpoint for the town of Milton, has been very exciting. So, that's sort of where we are right now. And I'm interested to hear if there's any further questions or comments.
Yeah, I was just going to, Scott, I did distribute the 3 documents you sent. Do you want to just briefly describe those? And then I think we can go right into questions.
Sure. So, some things that we just wanted to, we wanted to get some things in writing to help support the application. Mm-hmm. So we came up, or through a series of meetings, Kyle kind of pushed the idea of getting some of the businesses in our community to help, with saying this is an important step into starting some public and private partnerships and projects. So there are 4 folks that signed it: Brian Pasquantonio, Kyle Harnish, again, who's not able to make it tonight, JD, and Bob Falcone basically stepped forward and said, we're interested in helping to support this project in whatever way we can to make that happen. The second piece of information was an assessment done by Richard Hunt Landscaping on the oak tree that is currently in the middle of the park. And again, it's been kind of the source of some discussion in terms of, can the tree be saved based on its current state? And also, if from an ADA perspective, how would we accomplish creating an ADA space with this large tree and root system that's exposed on the property? So there's an assessment that got distributed as well. And third was the second letter from the select board. As you might recall, this property is select board property. And, we've kind of stepped forward to usher this project forward, but really the decision-making process and what to do with this land lies with the select board. So we wanted to make sure that throughout the process they were involved. This letter is a support letter that we actually got today, but we had a presentation a couple of weeks ago with the select board. That was the 3rd time meeting with them to kind of update them on the process. And this is a support letter that we're going to do with our application.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. As we talked about, because there's a couple new members of the select board, and that was important. Yep, sure.
We provided all the documentation that we had and what funding, what would be required.
And was there any discussion about any other source of funding besides CPC and capital? I think we have a request into the capital as right? Did they have any other?
They didn't have specific questions on that, but I think they're probably the best person to field that question if you don't mind.
Sure. So one of the things we discussed, let me back up a little if you don't mind. So I came into this conversation as a local business owner. I own Muscle and Flow, which is the gym down there in Milton Village. I'm also a proprietor. I own some property down there in the village, and then I also actually live up in Milton Hill. So this project touches home to me. It hits me kind of every facet of Milton life. So when this project first came across my plate, from Bill and Scott, I became very excited because one of the things that I've been very vocal about investing down the village and moving is that I think the Milton Village has an extraordinary amount of potential for placemaking, for activation, to improve the quality of life for the Milton residents. So when we started talking about using that space, there was a really honest conversation about no one even really knows that park exists because it is kind of no man's land right now. So as we work through those conversations, we get into, how the businesses can help at a high level. One of the things that we explored as a team was is there a way that we can introduce businesses to help fund this and bring it in private? So we brought it to Nick Milano. And one of the problems we had is that because it is town land, it has to go through the public bidding process. So naturally, a large portion of the funding would have to go through that process. So one of the discussions we had was, can we source the front end portion of the project with public funds, essentially prep the infrastructure and then bring in private funds to help the finishes. So essentially invest in the land itself, get it to a workable site, and then partner with local businesses and families in town, people that want to contribute, so that it can be kind of a community project. One of the things I do want to stress, and again, part of the reason why I'm here tonight is I don't want to look at this park in a vacuum. I think if you just look at it on a piece of paper, it is a piece of land with a large request before this board. It's a very important piece of Milton Village, and the businesses down there need growth. They need things like this to help people stay in the village and consume goods and services. Right now, the village is very transactional. You go to the post office, you grab your mail, you go. You go to the harvester, you grab your mail, go. Someone with young kids, my kids come ripping down that hill on their scooters, and we either take a left to steal a ride, or maybe go to Flat Black, but you're in and out. There's really no engagement with the village. So I did bring Dan from Steel and Ride tonight because one of the conversations that him and I had early on when I was trying to suggest that we partner over to Elliott was what's possible in the village and what it can become. And that was their early conversations about this park. And it was very clear that as I started to talk about the park, as I started to talk about activations for the waterfront, I could see his eyes light up. So I want to make sure that this board knows that this park is a big part of that conversation and what's possible in Milton Village. I think all the businesses would do better. I think all the residents would have a place where they can go get a coffee. Mothers can bring strollers, kids can play. And I think as part of that conversation, the businesses are all excited and would love to be a part of the conversation, how they can help as well. So I don't know if that directly answers it, but
That brings me to the meeting that I participated in with a few of you at Kyle's office, where we talked about that, what you could do under the public bid and what you could do separately. Have you taken a look at your budget, your construction budget, and separated that out? So like, this is the number for public bid and this is the number that we could source out of funding for. Have you done that yet?
So we from that meeting, we did take a step back. If you can't pass like we did take a look at that, and we're able to go through the 75% cost estimate, and it kind of that larger document breaks out certain scopes. And we went through that and highlighted, well, what is an infrastructure piece? What would be kind of an additional layer to the park? And came up with a document, and I think I sent it over manually. You were not physically at the last meeting, but we did circulate that.
I think you're talking about something since September, right? Well, I have for 75% estimate September 18th.
So basically, this is what we're talking about, and I can share this with you guys, or if we can get it on the screen. But basically, taking this document that says, this is what direct site work costs are. This is what the additional soft costs are. So basically, CPA in the town that's the amount of money, 1.1 million. And this, again, this budget, we've talked about this before, the 75% documents come out at 1.5 million. The 50% documents were 1.9 million. When we get to 100%, we're looking at trying to get this project down to about 1.2 million. So 750,000 would come from CPC funding, 250,000 from the capital committee, and then the remaining 250,000, whatever that turns out to be, would be public private. So essentially, foundational work would cover certain things like, retaining wall, handrails, that type of stuff. But the infrastructure pieces, which would be existing conditions, the earthwork, paving, the walkway, plantings would be something that the private end would be able to pick up. And the utilities that the site would require would also be part of the town. So it's essentially the nuts and bolts of creating an accessible space, and then all the amenities added after that would be covered by private folks.
So when you're looking at getting that 300,000-ish out, I look at this, what you're looking at as direct site work of 825. 300 is a pretty large percentage of that. And when I look at where those numbers lie, there's a big chunk in the earthwork, and I'm wondering if you've thought about if there's a way to reduce that earthwork number to help you get there. So rather than the finishes, which are the things that people see, or something that's less durable, is there something that should be quickly adjusted in there
possibly
to address the earthwork costs?
Yes, possibly. So we've stopped at 75%. So we could have this conversation, because we didn't want to blow through our fee and then there's no money left, and now we have to start making changes. So I'm not going to say yes, because there is significant cut to make the site relatively level for compliance in terms of slopes, but possibly, yeah.
I was at the first public meeting and showed a variety of things. And the one that the public reacted to the most, I think, was your third proposal, which shows roughly a circle up where you've got it and some of that. But it specifically identified preserving the tree as part of that project. Then I was out of town at the next meeting, so I didn't see that. And those were the only two public meetings.
For the first meeting, just to back to, for the first meeting, we showed 3 options.
Right.
So I'm on the shade tree committee for the town. So I love trees and I want to preserve them as much as possible. And so I knew in my head, I'm like, Milton loves its trees. So I was concerned. So I said, let's just go chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, and let's clean the site, and we're going to make it a level green space. Let's see how everyone responds to that. And then this second scheme was keeping the beech tree at the sort of the lower end of the slope, removing the oak tree, which is the problem, really one of the issues for the market. And then the third scheme was keeping both of them. And then we even talked about sort of the education of different ways that we could aerostate the tree to sort of evaluate where its roots are growing. And at the end of the first meeting that we had, there was the direction that was given to us was the group was very interested in scheme 2, which was the removal of the oak tree and the preservation of the beech tree.
That was a meeting I was at. My concern is, I think, did you look at an option where you set your base elevation at the elevation of the oak tree rather than of the beech tree and create, in essence, the same plan you've got now, but, basically 2 or 2.5 feet higher, which would reduce or eliminate a lot of that wall work. It would eliminate the bulk of the expensive earthwork and reduce the stairs. That could be $500,000 right there.
So we didn't look at a scheme to keep the oak tree because the oak tree is problematic for the site.
Right.
But we wanted to keep one tree. And so that was the decision we had to make. So do we keep the beech tree, which is much healthier? And when we walked the site with Doug prior for him to give us an assessment, he said that his recommendation is, to prune the tree.
Yesterday.
We met with him maybe 3 weeks ago. And so his recommendation was, to prune the beech tree in terms of livability. Like the big thing in my mind is if Milton's going to invest a significant amount of money on this site, we want to think about this in terms of a 100-year window. So to design a park that's based on a tree that's clearly in decline. And I would prefer to preserve the tree that's healthier versus the tree that's, let's say, we can even say it's not in decline, but it's past its prime for sure. And so we're setting grades that are at that elevation, and then we're gonna have steeper slopes down to the parking lot beyond. It just didn't seem that that was the most beneficial in gaining the maximum space that we could get for the park.
So.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Here, I have to say something?
Yeah.
So, I'm not a professional in the area. I just moved to Milton 5 years ago from Boston. And one of the things that drew my husband and I to Milton was the community. And I live at 88 Wharf, so I look right up at Wharf Street and I see the park. And people come down that street all the time, necessarily on scooters, but they come down that street all the time, and the park is invisible. No one stops there. There's no reason to stop there because it's not very inviting. It doesn't welcome people in. With respect to the farmers market, which a lot of folks in my building love, there's a couple of older folks there and have trouble walking around there because of that, the oak tree and the root system that's there. So they can't participate in that. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I was walking in there a couple of weeks ago and tripped myself, and I've lived there for 5 years. As part of the board of trustees for Milton Landing, we have a very local group of residents who are very much interested in keeping greenery, making sure that we have nature outside of our window. But, and I apologize, I was at that first meeting. I recall that the plan that folks were most interested in was the one that didn't include the oak tree, because it does kind of cut up that whole space. So no one wants to lose the tree, but it seems like that's a big impediment to making that the space residents want it to be, so that kids can play there, or older folks can play there, or they should play too. The other thing I'll mention about the tree is I've had a few experiences myself where I've sat on that one sad, lonely bench that's right next to the tree. And from June to August, the number of carpenter ants that have fallen on me from that tree, it just makes it a place you don't want to spend any time. And so I think that, again, I'm not a money person, but I live there, I love the village, I love what's there. And I see this park as a way to revitalize that part of Milton that brought, so many of us to live in the first place.
Rob had his hand up, and then we'll go back to Pete and Jenny. Yep, Rob.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I just want to thank Scott and his team for coming out, and I appreciate the 3 letters that we received today. The one from the select board, which we've been asking about with the new select board support. I appreciate that, as well as the letter from the arborist. So thank you, and thanks to Scott and his team for putting this project forward. Just a few things that I guess I have a question for Bill and Scott is, I was out to the site probably, 2 weeks ago or so to look at this with Pete. And one question is it possible, it seems like there's a lot of earth that's getting removed from the site with this project. And is there an opportunity here to save some money by lifting up, by bringing up that, the earth up a little bit? And so that's just a question for you guys to see if is there an opportunity here to not make such a big change in the plane of the project and remove that much earth. And so I just want to know a little bit more detail around that, and if there's opportunities for some savings and not such a big cut to the elevation.
Thanks, Rob. I can't remember the slopes right off the top of my head, but I know that there's a couple of things that we're thinking about. One is, on the residential side, we always think like we don't want to have a table where you can see the wine glassing tipping. It's similar with the market. So we want to have a relatively flat space, pitching enough. Can you see me, by the way?
He can't see you.
I can't see you, no. I can hear you though.
So we want to, we want to have it flat enough that the tables, when the setups are occurring for the market, that it looks that it's relatively flat.
Yeah.
So we graded it, so I believe it should be in the 53% range. So your question, Cheryl's question is they're great. And I can't answer if we can minimize some of the cutting.
Right.
But there might be, I guess, Cheryl, I didn't want to say yes, because I need to look at the drawing and study it more.
Yep.
But that's, to save some money. We've been trying to save money for the last 4 months in different methods. So this suggestion, we will look at a little closer.
So I have a question for you. I think cutting down the earthwork on the left-hand side, the flat, if we didn't do that and we were to change the grade, we'd still have to add some sort of retaining wall on the east side, correct? Because there is such a slope difference. So in the end, I'm not sure it's going to really get us any different in terms of cost.
You would have, if you did raise your cut, you would have less wall, you would have less earth removal. But you have
And less steps, right? Less steps.
I mean, we're all design professionals, others the ones making these comments, right? So, and, we've looked at and worked on grading plans and these kinds of things. And I always when I have a budget problem, I always look at my biggest ticket item and say, what's driving my budget problem here? And it's not the little things that you're going to chip away at. And it's usually like this, in our big project, the landscape's the last thing to go in, and that's where the cuts get made. And so it's, if you can find a way, I always look for things that are not the things that the user is going to see. So that it's this sort of thing that is driving some costs here that the users won't see. So as a design professional here, I think it's just, we're giving you some suggestions which could help the budget, and it doesn't change the design concept. It doesn't affect the tree. It's just a question of how you're implementing it in the end product. And so that's hopefully something where I'm concerned, whether you're going to get that kind of money out. And then I know you have that goal, but having looked through the budget, I am concerned about that. And, it is a good project. I mean, I started working on the master plan implementation committee over 10 years ago. We started with planning work at the landing, and we developed a report that got passed on to the select board, and the select board said in the letter that they're working on that implementation. So it's great to see progress and see things that we've worked on some years ago, having some progress. And so I do want to see progress here. So, and I agree with JP. We passed zoning. I worked on zoning too. And the town passed it 5 years ago, and not one project since zoning yet. And I keep saying, why not?
We're done that too.
We should, if we have to change the zoning, we should do that again, because it is an amazing part of Milton. And the JD's making some progress, and the town needs to do its part too, and hopefully other property owners will too. So I hope you're taking my comments in that vein.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for the feedback.
And Pete, and then Jenny.
I think the difference is if you use a higher elevation for your circle, then the change in grade, instead of happening between the sidewalk and going down there, the bigger change of grade happens from your circle area going down to the lower. So there'll be a slope that goes down to the beech tree area.
Correct.
But it eliminates, a big piece of your earthwork, a big piece of your wall and stair construction. And you can have the circle, you have to grade it up, and the circle might get a little smaller. You'd have to work at that.
Right.
But I just think it makes sense. And regardless of what happens with the tree, and I have to review the arborist report and things like that, but I've been watching that tree for a long time. And there are actually 3 beautiful, healthy trees that are being removed in this project. It's not just the proposed oak tree. You know, you've got a beautiful pin oak over there. Near the driveway that goes back to the MBTA parking lot, you've got a beautiful young sugar maple out
We're
there
gonna
by the
transplant
wall.
that, correct, yeah.
Well, it's not in the plans, but yeah, those trees, if they have to be removed, you know, should be transplanted.
Right.
One of the other things, well, we're throwing out suggestions here. You're putting in a lot of impervious surfaces that aren't there now. So I would suggest that your plan improves a infiltration basin, you know, like a rain garden or something, so that you can handle the increased stormwater that all this impervious surface is going to generate. But I appreciate the hard work, Scott. I know how hard you've been working on this for years. And, you know, I just wish there were more opportunities for input. Has anybody from the town done like a detailed engineering and design review? Has the town engineer reviewed the project at all, or any of that?
I don't think it's required of the project, so it hasn't been.
It's a town project on town land, of course it's gonna be. Okay.
I will say that this process has been going on since 2022.
Yeah.
And to have these types of questions coming up now is a little frustrating because I just don't know where this project's going to go from here. So, you know, I'll share that as my own personal feelings on it. You know, there was a lot of opportunity throughout this process for public input, whether you decided to show or not, or whether
There were two meetings at the conceptual design.
Can I finish?
Sure.
Okay. I just think that this town is begging for development in this particular neighborhood. This committee here is a funding decision mechanism for the town. It's not the planning board. It's not your supposed to be making funding decisions, not decisions on the technical nature of a project. I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but for someone who's invested a lot of time and money in this project and to have it at the last minute potentially not be funded is extremely frustrating. This has been with our committee, all volunteer. We're the only people who have stepped forward to make a difference down there at this park. I just don't see that, you know, if you guys are asking us to go back to the drawing board and re-engineer this, the private side of this funding is not able to withstand an additional round of this. That is something that you guys are going to need to make the decision on, whether you want to get back to the drawing board and re-engineer the project. That's your choice. I don't see, you know, I think we spent a lot of time on this project, listening to the community, listening to folks. And we redesigned this project how many other times to get it to a point where we tried to hit 90 to 95% of the requests that came in. And we spent a lot of time getting it to where it is now. And again, kind of a last minute change is difficult to hear. That's probably where I'm at right now. But I guess I'll stop while I'm ahead, but I think that's how I feel.
So let me give a couple other members who haven't spoken yet. Rob, I'm going to call on you in a minute, but Jenny's been waiting patiently. So Jenny.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it back. Yeah. Mr. Hunt's letter involved a replacement tree. So I just wondered where he got that from. Did you have an idea for indication that there was going to be a replacement for the?
And it wasn't clear to me whether that was replacement on elsewhere on the site or, you know, planting another tree. In other words,
There's significant planting that's happened. So, you know, we can't caliper it. I mean, maybe we get close to the caliper inch, but I mean, again, that's budget an element. But yeah, there's significant planting that's being proposed for this.
Right.
So, but I don't know where he.
I just didn't know where he got that.
Maybe, yeah, he was
I think you're shooting from the hip. on it.
Free willing.
Anyway, and then my second question is, the circle, when I look at it, I see heat. I mean, it just seems hot, I mean, super hot. And some of the images have a shade awning, but it's not in the budget. So I didn't know what the plan, how difficult that is, or, I mean, I'm sure what your thought is about shade.
I mean, so, you always start with sort of big visions of what these things could be. So we talked about, I don't know if it's anybody in here, but we were talking about more canopy trees in the space. Chris, if you can. And that was really more, actually, it was a group that we met with that was more farmer market centric. Wasn't she talking? I feel like there's a woman talking about providing shade, but yeah, that was something that was considered for sure. But in terms of the space, the circle really was driven from the planning board. We had a great sort of design meeting on site, and so we reoriented the entire park from where it was originally designed. And I think this is where Scott's going in terms of like trying to get input from all different groups. The park has been reoriented now, so it orients itself to the river. So you can sort of sit along the seawall. And the circle was born from the concept of connecting it to the lower park that's in the ward.
25.
25. So there's like a series of circles that are sort of make that up. So the planning board was very interested in making this feel like more of a precinct. So everything was cohesive. So those were the shapes and orientation. In terms of the shade, it's a great point. We're really trying to maximize space for usage for the market. It's really functionality. Yep.
I'll speak a little bit on the market as far as designing that circle is not only being on the board, but being a vendor down there. The first thing that we do when we get set up is first clean up every branch that has fallen off that oak tree. And in fact, 2 years ago, we used to have 2 picnic tables down there and a very large limb that was probably the size of a car fell off that tree and smashed that down. So when we first talked, 3 of us, it was a safety issue. We want people to come to the market to get their goods, hang out, be active, go up to JD's place, stuff like that. We lost a lot of shoppers there. Our majority of the shoppers, I would say,
Who have not come there. You haven't lost them otherwise. Right. I mean, we this is being recorded.
both of those people have declined because of the access there. I have seen with my own eyes somebody come up, drop a gentleman off, and he says, "Can you go down there and give me 2 ears of corn? Can you go give me 2 cookies?" And I'm going to stand right there. That's not how he wants to shop at the market. That's not how we want to sell at the market. We used to have the Council of Aging come down in their van, drop off a whole group of folks. Even if they bought nothing, it was something for them to do. That has gone by the wayside because of this project. I mean, I've been down there for probably 5-6 years now, and nothing has happened to that park. And this is a great project there. So that's where we kind of thought that circle is get more people around there, get access so everyone can walk around and talk to the vendors, find out what we're all about.
Jenny, did you have additional questions? Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I just want to take a step back and answer Scott. Basically, this isn't a small lift for this committee, just so that everyone understands. This is a big amount of money that we're going to be going from this committee to town meeting to try to get a 2/3 vote. So funding is a big issue on this one. So I hope, I think the design professionals who are on this call, we're just looking at this, it's one thing to look at plans, as we all know. It's another thing to go out there and look at it. And so if there is ways to save some money on this project, I would hope that would be taken seriously, because we know as this committee, as we continue to go on year and year, it's going to be a big lift for this committee, to continue to spend funds wisely. So I don't think we're looking at making major changes to any designs here. I think we're just looking at ways that potentially could save some money in the long run, because this is going to be a 20-year type project that needs to get bonded.
Yeah, and that's a good summary, Rob, of what we have in front of us. We are a funding committee with a lot of really great experts on this committee. Not me, but people like Cheryl and Pete and we all have different expertises, but Rob and Cheryl and Pete particularly in this area. So that's our challenge. It is, as I think Scott and I have talked about this. I think everybody in the room knows that this would necessitate us bonding for the first time. CPC communities, the vast majority of them have bonded. We're still a fairly young committee. This is only our fourth year of submitting an article to town meeting. So that would be a first for us. So that's a new challenge for us. And obviously, any bonding article needs as Rob just referred to, a 2/3 majority of town meeting, which is a higher hurdle. Now, I will say we have passed the previous 3 articles with 99% support. Usually 1 or 2 or 3 people vote against it, but yeah, I think this year we only got one negative vote, but whatever. So the town meeting in specific, the town in general, passing CPA with 63% of the vote and back in 2020, and then town meeting specifically has been very supportive of our decisions in the past. So we would hope they would do that again. But so let me just ask again for any additional questions for anybody that hasn't been able to ask questions. Yeah, Steve and
you're looking for $750,000 from us. $250,000 from the capital committee. Has anybody discussed that with the capital committee?
They haven't gone through their interview or presentation process yet.
Okay. And the balance, whatever the balance is, will be private.
Right.
JD.
One last thing I want to offer while this board thinks about this is that I can't understate the significance of this park and what it has for potential for the village. So as Jeff mentioned, as a resident of Idiot Wharf, Madre is probably one of the first successful restaurants that's existed down there. Again, it's kind of no man's land. People don't even know what's down there. This park is the connection between Adams Street and Madre. So again, people go to Madre, they either eat dinner and leave. This allows foot traffic to travel to and fro. I mean, it's going to be an extraordinary opportunity for that business down there. The farmer's market, as a resident of the town, I personally don't use it a ton because I often find the terrain and the topography and the setup a little difficult to navigate. What this is going to present is not only to have a more robust market, but also pretty robust programming. One of the things that Bill and I discussed is, as a gym, we're happy to donate community free yoga classes. I would love to help coordinate as a business, Shakespeare in the Park, fun activities for kids. So as we talk through this, there's no question this is a huge undertaking for this board. I understand it's not a small amount of money we're asking for. I also think it's an extraordinary opportunity for this town. As far as I've been involved in the planning business, these conversations, it's rare that we're presented with this type of opportunity where a park can have such a substantive impact on an ecosystem and kind of a community. So I don't want to understate how extraordinary of an opportunity this is for the town of Milton, for the residents, for families, for the village, for the businesses. Everyone will do better because that park exists. Because right now, like Jeff said, it's really, most people don't even know it exists. It's just a kind of absent vacant piece of land. So this will be an extraordinary asset for the town of Milton. So.
Is it appropriate for me to make a motion on this or no?
So we did set that's meeting you weren't at. We set another meeting in December. That was in part not wanting to anticipate an outcome of what was it, December 18th that we set? 16th. We could take a vote tonight. We voted on every other proposal, right, except for the Randolph proposal. So we absolutely could. We did set another meeting in case the committee wanted to deliberate more and think about it, before we make a vote. But
I thought the treasurer was going to come in to discuss the bond.
that is the other aspect. We didn't invite her for tonight because I felt that it was, I didn't know exactly how long this would take, but I thought it was a reasonably, full agenda. So bringing Joanna McCarthy in, thank you, Robert, was to sort of talk a little more details about the mechanism of bonding and the actual, we have some estimates of what it would cost in terms of debt service per year, but to have her give us the latest and greatest on that.
I think that's a separate, I think that's a separate question. It seems to me that I'd like to see this committee, this group get some evidence of support from this committee. And so if it was a modification of the vote that we would say that we're in support, subject to us, understanding the consequences of the bonding.
Yep.
I think we need to understand the consequences of the bonding and financially what that means for how much is available, how much is committed for the next 20 years or 15 years. I think that's what we needed to understand.
But
what I'm saying is that
we do have an estimate, by the way. It's about an 90,000 per year and then declines over, and it was based on a 15-year bond, not a 20-year bond, a 15-year bond. So.
But what I'm saying is that I sort of feel with these people in front of us, that I'd like to have a motion to sort of indicate that I'll be.
You can certainly make them.
I'd like to make that motion.
Make the motion.
I agree with JD. I was at an event for the library on Monday at Steel and Rye, and I was so struck by the fact we sold 194 tickets for people to come out to raise money for the library. And the fact people had a place to go and a place to congregate, this town does not have those. It doesn't have that opportunity hardly ever. And to get that amazing turnout, at Steel and Rye on a Monday. And I said, the place was packed. And we, as the Friends of the Library, we do programming in that park, and it's tough. It's not comfortable for little kids to sit and have Sarah read to them. We're there all the time, for the kids, and it's just not a really great spot for that. And we would get much better participation if people could actually roll a stroller, which they can't right now. And I just think that it's so important to have places and gathering places in this town, which we don't have, and we lose them all the time. And so I'd like to let these people know, I'd like to have a motion to sort of say, yes, we're generally in support of their project and that it's subject to our understanding the financial consequences. And that would be my motion.
So.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Option business about supporting a $750,000 request.
We're supporting the $750,000 subject to our understanding of the cost of it through the bonding mechanism.
Because we have no funds to support it at 750 if we do not bond.
Yes, but so
you're making a motion to go forward with bonding, really?
Subject to, yes.
Without having.
We'll say just say that we are in support of this project and that the next opportunity, we will be discussing what the financial cost of it is before we vote for it. Yes.
So this is different than the votes we've taken.
It's not
up to now.
We're approving this application. That's not my motion.
So it's a motion of support, general support.
General support to have these people. I just did, but okay. I'd like to have I'm making a motion to indicate this committee's support of the Wharf Park project, subject to are getting cost estimates for what the bonding would be.
So I need a second. Do I have a second? Second. All right, then now discussion. This is not always a stickler for Robert's rules, but so we have a motion and a second and more discussion and questions. Jenny.
The last meeting was in addition to not understanding the complete bonding, but was also to fully understand the potential of other bonding requests this committee may receive in the future. Just to understand that.
Yeah, the fire station, particularly the Atherton Street Fire Station. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's we can,
can't
we
control-
can attempt to do that. That is going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be challenging, right? Every time for the last 2 years, I've seen Brian Walsh on the street says we need to talk to the CPC. But for 2 years, they haven't come before the CPC. So no, I understand. And Brian's done an extraordinary job. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think they know exactly what they need and what direction they're going to go. Yeah, no, right. I mean, but it just feels like to me, I'm not, whatever, we can do our best to extract what information the Fire Station Building Committee has at their disposal right now to factor into that discussion. But I don't know if we're going to have certainty is, I guess, that's all I'm saying. Or I'm pretty sure we're not going to have certainty by the time we have to make a recommendation at town meeting. But all right. So other discussion on the motion. Yep.
I'm not confused, but a little bit wondering about subject to understanding the bond. I'm not sure what that.
Well, as I said, I'm just concerned about the fact that we have all these people here and they have spent an amazing amount of time. And as Scott said, to come here at the last minute in their idea that, come before us and people are like, well, I'd like you to, have it be pink, not blue. And I'd like to have this and not that, I just would like to send a message to the team that is here today that in general, I'd like to find out whether the committee is generally in favor of going ahead with this.
So one of the things I would say is the funding request is important for us to understand what the long-term consequences of that dollar value is. Because some applicants have come forward with requests and they don't get recommended for the full request that they've asked for because there's not sufficient funds. And so I want to be sure that we fully understand that this will be something that is decided for the future committees for the next 15 years. That there's an additional cost that comes with bonding. I think Rob spoke about that before. So it's not a $1.2 million project. Just on the bonding alone, the costs are going to go up for the cost of the borrowing, right? So
no, you do the bond, you buy the bond, the cost of the bond stays.
But the project costs go up because the cost of the money goes up. So the question I think that we asked tonight is, can the cost of the project go down? So that helps the overall request that comes to us. Maybe the request will still be $750, but if the project costs go down, we can consider whether the recommendation that we make is for the full $750 or whether the recommendation is for $500 or $600 or some other number as we think about the impact that it has on, let's just say it's, you said 85 to 90, and we have about $1 million a year. So we're talking about nearly 10% of it is committed every year. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be a little bit more than $1 million some years and a little bit less than $1 million some years.
No. The bonding cost stays the same.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
90,000. If we have $1 million to spend every year, which is approximately what we have currently, that's what she's saying. 90,000 is 9% of that.
I mean, but it was, as Thomas pointed out any number of times, and as I know from borrowing a bunch of money, town of Plymouth, most towns do. And this is a special project. This isn't coming in and fixing my wall or taking care of a grove of trees. I mean, you get different kinds of projects, and every town gets faced with a significant capital project for the CPC. And it's either a fire station or it's the town hall or it's a massive redo of a recreational facility or the construction of a new park. So every town gets faced with those.
Right. So Pemberley Park has been trying to do the playground for the last 3 or 4 years too, right?
But they didn't ask. Okay, so we only can act on the applications we get. And they didn't ask for full thing. And in the end, what they have gotten along the way is a pretty significant amount of money over 3 years. for
Yeah,
Beverly Park.
they're the large, to date, they're the largest
And we
project.
have that same situation with Forbes, is that they were working on the barn, they came in for a chunk for this, they said they were gonna come back for a chunk. We've been told, Eustis Estate would come back for other things. We have in fact gotten repeat kind of customers. These folks have worked on a pretty major project. They know it's gonna be costing a bunch of money on town land. And so their request is the $750. I don't think we can go around and say, well, I'd rather if you did X, Y, and Z. That's not the application in front of us.
Well,
Pete, yeah.
first, I'd like to say how much I appreciate, how much I support, and appreciate all the hard work that everyone's put into this, a lot of time and effort. And so I agree with everybody here that that can be a very important site, and upgrading the site is a high priority and can have a great impact on the waterfront and the business area that we get. So I'm supportive of all of that. I understand the problem with the roots of the trees. That can be dealt with. Whether the tree goes or stays, the root problem can be dealt with, and you can have a usable site there even with the tree there. I don't know how to say this delicately. I don't believe there has been a sufficient public community process involving public meetings. There have been a lot of little meetings. You've met with everybody twice, whatever. You've met with a lot of people. But Scott, you say that this is coming up at the last minute. I've never had a chance to, let's be a professional for 48 years. I've never had a chance to see what the grading plan was and how the concept plan responded once the survey came in, because all the concepts we saw, there wasn't any survey, so you didn't know the elevations, you didn't know that. You could walk out there and look at it, but there's never been a chance to review that. There's never been a chance to review the playground. I saw the playground and tried to look it up on the site of the manufacturer and can't find anything related to what that playground is. The community's not had a chance to talk about what the playground is, what the surface is, and how that affects the surface, each tree and things like that. And some of that is, beyond here. I am very supportive of a project down there, and that project could be something that I could support, but it's without considering some of the issues, primarily the grading issue. I can't support the project as designed now. And if the team is not willing to take the less than a week it takes to look at, if we raise the elevation, to more reflect this, what's the impact and how that can be done. I think that's not a big,
no one said that.
ask. Nobody did.
No, he didn't. No. So what we're saying, we just got the feedback about that, and that's where I just can't answer Cheryl's question right now. We need to look at that, and so whether or not. My feeling is that, there's a lot of technical connections that we're making in terms of the existing roads, the sidewalks, the trees.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is that we might be able to raise it slightly. And as you know, Pete, when you have a public space that's 80, you can't have cross slopes or path of travel slopes that are greater than 2%. So the grades are very difficult. And we have had that engineered by Jim Burke. We've worked with him arm in arm in terms of that. So I don't take any of your feedback in terms of the design personally. I've been told a fountain I designed in Little Rock, it was a private urinal. So I've been through it. I don't have an ego anymore. But in terms of, just so you know, there's been engineers that have looked at the designs. There's been landscape architects that have been looked at the designs, and then we've had also professionals that have been looking at the plans as well. But in terms of the interest, we support the interest of reducing the cost. So I'm happy to hear the comment about the earthwork. And I just can't give the answer now, but we will look at that for sure.
I'd be happy to meet out. I know it's not my role, but I'd be happy to meet out and show you what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
I mean,
again,
we are, at the end of the day, taking my landscape architecture side, JD is so eloquent in the way that he's talking about this. We want this park as a Milton resident to happen. And so if we can reduce costs in any way, whether or not that's raising the grades a foot, well, at the main time meeting all the code compliances that we need to hit, then we will do that. There's no intent to have the price high. So any feedback that you guys give us, we are happy to look at that. And so we appreciate that feedback for sure.
All right. What I'm going to suggest, what I'm going to ask is for Kathleen to withdraw her motion, if you're willing. Obviously, you don't have to. That
what the suggestion.
we have a December 16th meeting on the books. A chance to bring in Joanna McCarthy or possibly the Fire Station Building Committee and just hear from them, because we have talked about that. A chance, that's what, I know there's a holiday in between and it's 3 weeks. Any additional insight you can give to answering Cheryl's question would be appreciated if it's not possible before then. What's that?
Steve, his head.
He's agreeing with me? Absolutely. Good. So, we would appreciate anything you could provide as a response to the grade issue, the cost issue. And then
the cost issue, we owned 2 cost estimates and we've used them. So we can make a, based on their unit costs, we could come up with a number. Again, it's not a certified price, but it would be a order of magnitude that maybe it saves us $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in terms of adjusting the grade. So we can look at that and provide some additional feedback.
Okay. Then I think we would I would suggest we would be prepared to vote on these final 2 projects, the Randolph wayfinding signage and the Wharf Park project on December 16th, after getting that feedback, after hearing back from you folks and after having a discussion here at this table, instead of having what I'm viewing as essentially a non-binding vote. I will say, for me personally, and just as one member of this committee, I am in full support of this project. I think when Scott first approached me 3 years ago, I used the word signature. This is a signature project for this town. I think that I agree with everything that's been said by the team, that this is an underutilized and kind of a space that I think we all agree on can be revitalized, can be a real signature for the town. And I like what I see. But we have to be, we have a perfect record at town meeting. I want to keep that. And I want this to have the support of as many people as possible in town meeting. So if it goes that far. So, but that's my personal opinion.
So I'll throw my motion.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments from you folks? Any from members?
And I hope you take my comments as a challenge and as not as a dislike of the project or a non-support of the project, but as a challenge.
Sure, I look at it as a collaboration. I think that's the thing with this town, that we need to collaborate more versus like, I'm telling you to do these things. I think the spirit of collaboration is important. And I think that's why this project, in my mind, has been so successful, because we've been hearing a lot of different voices. So I appreciate the feedback for sure.
Just one
Jenny, yes, yep.
Open-ended, because we don't have any sense about the capital committee. So I'm just wondering, is there any way to get any sense about that?
the capital budget or capital improvement, what is it called? The capital
I don't think we
capital committee.
can consider it. I mean, you know, that's a different committee. That's sort of not.
Do you know their timeline, Scott?
I don't, I can find out from Nick.
I think the department's in the total was big in capital this year.
There's always more
Anything
request than
significant.
there's money available. That's the same.
Departments have been told not to request. You know, there's some that will get things. Police will get a cruiser and the fire department will get something. That's, I've been told that they just, but again, that's not us. We don't know.
That's not us, and you know, sort of the project is the project.
I just wanted to clarify. So you, Scott, you alluded to the planning board earlier. Obviously, we had the select board letter. The planning board has voted to, or
This was at the very beginning of the project.
Yep.
Did a presentation over Zoom looking for a support letter.
Mhm.
Don't think that individual members or the board was able to put something together, and a few individual members did, right? But we did do a sidewalk with the planning, extensive sidewalk planning. There was a formal vote to support the project.
you know which members wrote letters? Okay.
I participated in that site walk as a member of the planning board, and there was discussion about considering the park as part of a broader context. So thinking of the other park, but also thinking of the connection to the greenway, the path, the trail that we talked about.
Yep.
You know, that just crossed to even to the trolley, which I've spoken about, making sure there's handicapped accessibility and a clear path there, because I have come off with a bike path to go over to the wharf and, you know, gone through the park or next to the park before that. And I think if one of the things that we had hoped there'd be better signage too, so that people on the path know that they could get off. I mean, our waterfront's a kind of little hidden gem, and residents have it, right? But it's this park is a part of that sort of larger open space network that we talked about. And so I think that's what the planning board feedback was, make it feel like it's more connected. And I think there were varying opinions about kind of how formal it should be or not formal it should be, whether, you know, how, what kind of plant material that, I mean, not everybody got into the same level of detail, but that sort of broader concept, I think, was that connection was important. And so you took those comments and thinking and adjusted your design. But I agree, I don't think there was a formal vote. Well, there's general support, you know, for improving the park, part of the Milton Village.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's helpful.
Has the conservation committee weighed in on this at all?
It's not conservation land.
Yeah.
It's not within 200 feet of the water. I think it is.
I'm sure, yeah, probably is, but, or at least part of the park.
Yeah.
Do you weigh in on everything within 200 feet?
Yeah. I think that have
I
concerns
don't
about
think
the
this would be
drainage.
riverfront zone, which is the 200, because it's the estuary, so I think it's something 100 feet.
Yeah. Correct, and I don't think it is within our jurisdiction.
Well, I think so.
Yeah. Certainly, we do have an interest. And I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
I'm a huge supporter of this project. I was a former participant in the farmers market and loved that area when my girls were babies, and very excited about this proposal, especially the fact that you're saving the beech tree. But I've also lived in town long enough to know that they don't last forever. And every time one of these legacy trees dies, I feel like a little part of my soul dies with them. And yeah, I mean, including the one right around the corner from where we are now, on the corner of Fairbanks, that just came down a couple of weeks ago. So I'm curious, and I'm wondering, I'm asking this question because I think that there may be other people at town meeting that have this question as well. And that is, what would what would happen to the vision of this space if that beech tree was not to live another 100 years?
Well, it won't. Just, you know, each tree.
Yeah.
It may,
Unlikely.
it may.
But
But if the design is sort of using that as a focal point.
Well, it's not necessarily a focal point, it's just a constraint. So because we want to keep it. And so we're using its roots as our constraint for how we create the site. And we have decided to remove the oak tree because of its condition and the challenges that come along with youth. And so we want to preserve beech tree. So we're sort of like saying, okay, guys, let's make a decision, which direction do we want to lean? And we're leaning towards saving the beech tree. If the beech tree dies and declines, I think then that's just sort of the nature of urban parks. I mean, it's sort of like happens all the time. So the design, I think, has a lot of flexibility because we have this space that's being created for public gatherings that is essentially the oak tree is more or less in the center of that space. And then there's this sort of, we call it the sort of the garden or wild space that's sort of closer to the parking lot. And so if that tree passes on, there's other tree species of trees that were shrubs and trees that are being planted down there. And so it'll just turn into more of a garden type space. But yeah, the evolution of parks is an interesting concept and it's been discussed by landscape architects for many years, but taking that into consideration in the design is, I think this park has the flexibility to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? So thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. And Scott, thank you for assembling a rich and
Already there.
well, no, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I think we have our agenda for the 16th. I have the date right, Jenny, right? The 16th?
The 16th.
Tuesday, December 16th. Yep. At 7 p.m. Probably back at our normal meeting room, I would think. But well, we can ask for it. Do people like this room? All right, let's ask for this. Let's make this our normal meeting room. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I do like this room as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. As long as we figure out the echo. Well, yeah.
Will you remember next time?
No. I can almost guarantee that. I'm getting to. So 7 o'clock, hopefully here, but I'll confirm that on December 16th. Pete, I think, was just about to ask about the site walk. That's my fault. My schedule kind of changed, so I have not. I initially sent an email to Marita, and I didn't hear.
Site walk of what?
Didn't hear back. I don't know if but whatever. But
she's lined up and other people lined up.
Site walk of what?
She's lined up for Saturday?
For Saturday for Winter Valley. That's kind of the site.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. It's not posted. So it's too late. It would have been posted by today.
Can't we?
So I'm sorry, I didn't.
Discuss it, right? Kathleen?
Um,
If there's no discussion and it's
Right.
just somebody pointing it out, what's there?
That's my understanding of it. You need to contact anybody.
You can't.
Well, we already, I mean, it lines up for that because we've already made the recommendation. There's nothing to discuss.
There's nothing to vote.
We voted on
Yeah.
recommending that project. So yeah, what time? Okay.
Oh, I didn't see that. So I'd love to do that.
All right. So so it's on. So
This Saturday, 10
10 o'clock at Winter Valley at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And we'll meet by the community building there. That's right next to the garden and where the offices are.
Okay. Okay. And we will not debate anything there.
No debate.
So, all right, Rob, thank you for weighing in from Pittsburgh, or wherever you are.
New York right now, but
New York.
be home tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right.
Safe travels. I was going to get a motion to adjourn, but Pete, did you have something else?
Well, we had an item on here to be discussing that supported project, but I guess we're going to hold that whole thing off for.
Yeah, for the 16th, I think. Yeah.
I mean, I'm troubled about saying that, we have the fire station committee in because we don't have an application from them.
One thing I was saying.
I think the members had expressed, I think, just a desire to hear their current thinking. You're right. We don't have an application. Yeah, we can, I don't know if it's appropriate to have them in. I can attempt to have a more detailed conversation with Brian to see what and then relay that to here. That might be more appropriate, frankly.
I talked to him about that standing out in science. So we had a long chat about the fire station. And there clearly is the intention to preserve most of it.
Right.
And given the history of the building.
There's only, I think everybody knows this, but there's only a small, well, I don't want to say small, but there's only a portion of that work that we can, and, so basically anything interior, we can't support.
There's a fair amount to a building like that.
Exterior.
Yeah.
Exterior.
Yeah. No, I mean.
They're out of funds, that they were allocated to do 3 stations and they've spent them on 2.
Yep. Yep.
That, but just there's no funding. And so, if we're thinking about, the town will be looking at, debt service override for that. The CPC, that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that was a part of the pitch to the residents was, help with the fire station. So I do think it's worth seeing if they plan to apply in the next round and if they've done a budget that shows what the preservation portion is.
Yeah, I can attempt to get as much information as possible on that. I think the other variable, and I agree with everything Cheryl said. As many of you know, I was part of that campaign, and fire stations were front and center of every brochure that we mailed out, and that type of stuff, specifically Atherton. Well,
we thought we were going to do Central too.
Yeah. Right. We took a picture of that building, the building that's still.
We took a picture of this building.
No, the auxiliary building, the chemical building. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. No, what was I going to say? Sorry, it just blanked and. Well, you just mentioned the other variable, which is going to be really hard to predict, is regardless of this committee's inclination to fund Atherton, they're going to need a debt service override that's going to require a vote of the town. So that doesn't mean we don't support it and don't fund it, but there's a lot of variables before they get to, and when's the right time for them to bring that? When are they planning on doing that? Does that pass? So all I was saying is kind of, I'm in your camp of.
You can have projects like this one, for example, where, we vote the 750, town meeting votes it and nothing happens. Yeah. And so what has to happen then is that you have to go back to town meeting and rescind the earlier vote. And that definitely happens with the borrowing. So we can vote to do it. And we can, vote, and the town could vote for the borrower. And then they don't get the capital money, or they don't get this, they don't start. And so we just have to go back and rescind that vote, because otherwise that money sits there in our debt, our cap of what we have. So we have to go back and,
Yeah.
you know, at Plymouth, we used to do it every couple of years. We'd have to go back and rescind, 6 votes because nothing, the project never happened.
I want to just be clear about my concern about their budget is I reviewed their budget and I met with them. And I think it's going to be hard to get to 1.2 without any changes to the design. There's just only so much you can do with the materials that you change and so forth. And so I said it's a challenge. Well, I do think it's a challenge that unless they plan to, get more and more out of the public bid, the cost will drop, just the same scope will drop if it's out of the public bid. And they get that done through the private, but there's a certain limit to how much can be pulled
They
out.
can do that.
Yeah, they can do like the landscape, right? Like plant materials, they don't have to be public bid.
There's $60,000 worth of shrubs and trees. 900.
That's not enough. Not enough.
$950 per arborvitae.
Yeah.
So that's ridiculous. No, there's a lot in that thing. I mean, there's almost no contingency.
Right.
And, they need,
They're,
at least a 10%.
they're removing trees along the property line over a wall the town doesn't own, and the roots are probably under it. You need a contingency just for the wall. I mean, so there's, my point is that the funding, as Kathleen said, I mean, if they don't get all of their funding, and I really think if they're looking at a larger project, where does that leave us?
Well, I mean, as I said, we vote, this happens all the time. You vote it, it's, the authorization is there, the money doesn't go anyplace. And after a couple of years, when nothing's happening, we have to go back to town meeting and rescind the
Does it actually get
vote.
bonded though? Does it go out to get bonded when you vote it?
No, not till you need it. It's just the authorization, not the action.
But then you still have you have to hold that money aside each year then?
No, you don't. But it affects the treasurer in terms of when you report to DOR about what your debt limit is. And so we have this authorization, which we've never exercised. But it sort of affects what the rest of the town can do for borrowing, is because there's the potential to borrow for this.
So let's say like they don't raise money for 2 years. Let's say it takes 2 years to raise the money.
Yeah.
And that means like next year, do we have to hold 90,000 or whatever? No.
No, we don't.
We
But
don't.
it's taken off the town's ability. The town
Yeah.
every year.
Your rating,
is
your
told
bond
how
rating
much
is
they can
X.
borrow.
Your bond rating is X, and you've used some of that rating cap
Potential.
for potential. So it affects our bond rating to have all that stuff sit out there as a potential borrow. It's like when you have a HELOC, but you haven't drawn on it. You've taken the debt, but you haven't used it, and you're not paying anything on it, but it's affecting your credit.
Your credit, right?
So would they start this project without it being fully funded?
I don't know. I mean,
That's going to be a good
I
question.
think Nick told them they couldn't. That,
They can't.
on a public bid portion of it, no, you have to have all your money.
I mean, we'll have this debate. I have confidence in this team. If we vote 700, if town meeting votes 750,000 for this project's going to happen. I have confidence in the team. It's a huge, that's a huge commitment. They're going to make it happen. He's assembled some of the heavyweights in town. And Scott himself has invested 3 or 4 years of his life on this. And I can't see it not happening. It might happen with some of the changes and cost shaving that you're recommending even, but I can't see, I can't see it's got too much support in town.
J.D. Weil owns the whole village.
Yeah.
He just bought the Associates building.
Oh, he did.
So which building?
I call it the
Associates. The big
The one with the.
Oh, that big one? You're
The
kidding.
one that backs up to this.
He
Wow.
owns the Bank of America building. He owns the building across the street. He owns most of the block on the opposite side of Adams.
Wow.
Right.
When he bought that?
Yeah, his presence tonight was significant in my mind in
Yeah,
terms of.
because he didn't sign the support letter that we got.
No, that was just a logistical thing. But yeah, Scott had said
No.
JD's signature's not on it, but he's signing it actually literally tonight. So.
That's, I didn't know, yeah, that's amazing.
He just bought that
Wow.
within the last month.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Bank of America project.
So does he want the Swift hat?
Sorry?
Does he want the Swift hat?
I mean, he might as well go right up the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question if anything
Yes.
else is heard? Last time I talked to Brian about the Atherton station, he said the committee was considering demolishing that station and building a whole new building on property behind it.
So Pete,
Has everybody heard that?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I heard that. I heard the same thing.
The fire station building committee a month or so ago, and that was one of the things that was floated. What was floated was building there an equivalent to the East Milton station on land behind the existing building.
Mm-hmm.
There is land there there's enough land to do it. Ellen Anzalone, who's on the Historical Commission and the Fire Station Building Committee, said the issue with that is the land slopes down steeply, and it would make it difficult for the trucks to get going up the hill. The other wrench that got thrown in is MassDOT wants to discontinue Bradley Road behind the station, loop across a connection with Atherton Street. So it's a four-way intersection rather than five. And put a roundabout in. And that virtual public hearing conflicted with this meeting. So, I mean, and they floated this idea a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the fire department's there. Well, wait a minute, you're going to take our land away.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to give you the piece that's on Bradley Road. Well, we were going to build something there, says the chief. And this was a couple of years ago. And I'm watching on, what the heck is he going to build? Well, apparently in the back of the mind is build a new station, a bigger station. We can't get along with one bay. We need two because maybe we need a brush truck or maybe a tanker truck.
So I have, Ellen messaged me on Tuesday. We had a meeting on Tuesday, and I asked her if demo of Atherton was still on the table, and she said no, as of Tuesday. So.
Oh, okay. It's good to hear. Now, what do you mean by on the table for changing it?
Were they still considering?
Discussion.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brian had told me that, a month ago that there was no way they were going to tear it down.
He, I think, recognizes that there's a lot of support in town for saving the structure. Yeah.
Well, he was telling me the whole history of it. That got funded by the Saltonstalls after they lost a child, a 3-year-old, in a fire.
Oh, wow.
They lost a 3-year-old child in 1901.
Yeah.
And the town report for 1901 lists all the fires.
Yeah.
And on this particular one, there's a little notation that a 3-year-old girl was badly burned and died 3 or 4 days later.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the 1902 town report, there's a notation that there is now a hose house and equipment at Atherton Street and Blue Hill Avenue, making Milton right up to date with the best fire service of all the towns.
Because they donated the land.
There is a plaque in front of the station, facing the station. You can't read it from Blue Hill Avenue, but facing the station, indicating exactly that they had provided the funds because it took too long for the equipment to get there.
Right.
All right. Yes.
Different. Any update on staffing or anything? Can we discuss that now or no? No, we can't discuss it. No update. No one knows.
We can't discuss it. Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we invited Johanna yet for the 16th?
No, but I will.
Did we have a motion to adjourn?
Not yet.
No.
You want to make one?
Can you make one?
Yes, please.
Second,
So the motion, we now have to take a roll call. Rob,
Yes.
Cheryl, Steve,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Wendy. Yeah, Wendy. Let's skip Kathleen. Kathleen,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yeah.
Yes.
Pete, Jenny. Yes. Tom, yes. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you Saturday.
See you Saturday.